Hey guys, I'm back in Asia. This time I'm in Hong Kong, about to start filming a new series. But as I said in the last video, the channel recently turned 5 years old, and so I want to share my top 5 experiences that I've had since starting this channel. Now I'm not going to do these in any particular order, it's just going to be 5 things that were particular highlights for me. It's also quite difficult to choose because honestly every experience that I've had, every master that I've met, every place that I've been has been absolutely amazing. But as it's 5 years, I thought I would just choose 5 that kind of, stick out for me. And also for this upcoming series, I'm teaming up with my friend Damien from Kung Fit. So Damien is the reason why I'm looking quite a bit less fat than I did in the series in the Philippines and Malaysia last year. Because of Damien, I've lost 10 kilos in weight doing one of his fitness and nutrition programs. So if that's something of interest to you, look him up. His YouTube channel, Instagram is called Kung Fit. So yeah, right now we're at the Temple of 10,000 Buddhas up in Sha Tin in the New Territories. Thought it'd be a nice setting to do this video. And so quite appropriately, I think the first memorable experience on my channel that comes to mind is the very first series that I did with my friends Joel and Thomas, where we went to the villages around the Shaolin Temple, exploring the old styles of Shaolin martial arts. Now, this wasn't like one teacher in particular that really stuck out to me. It was just the sort of whole overall experience, I think, was the big thing there. That was definitely one of the highlights of the channel for me, because rather than focusing on the standardized temple curriculum of Shaolin Kung Fu that gets so much coverage and that's so popular around the world, we decided to go around the villages and search out the old styles. So this experience wasn't like, I wouldn't say this is one particular teacher that stood out for me, but rather just the overall trip. Because, being out in the villages and seeing the old way of doing Shaolin Kung Fu is so different to what they're doing at the temple. Like a lot of it's much more principle based. And because there's so many different like village Shaolin styles, and just finding the underlying principles that kind of link everything together, that was a really amazing experience. And some of those teachers were really like the old generation, and what they've been doing has been completely unchanged, in the last like 150 years or so. So I think that was a really great way to like start the channel and lead into everything. The second experience that really stood out for me was when I filmed the Xingyi series. My friend John Nicklin took us to visit the Song family in Taigu County in Shanxi province, and that was an absolute honor to get to meet Song Guanghua, who was the current head of the family. He was, I think, almost 90 years old, if not 90 years old, and he was actually the grandson of the founder, and he learnt, if I remember correctly, he learnt from his uncle, but then I think he learnt slightly also from his grandfather. So I mean, we were really like just one step removed from the creator of an entire style, an entire system. That was really special. And even at his advanced age, he was still very skilled. He was suffering from some health problems, so the doctor had told him he wasn't allowed to perform for us, but he still showed us a little bit of Fa Jin. He still explained a lot of the underlying principles to us, and his explanations were just so concise. You could just tell this was an entire lifetime of knowledge and experience, and he was just able to immediately like just bring out those key principles of the system. And the other thing that was really special about that was the fact that they are, as far as I know, the only martial arts family in China who have not only been continuing for over 4 generations, with currently 3 generations still alive and practicing, but also they've been doing it in the same house, the same courtyard. The place where we were filming, and also where my friend John had trained was the same courtyard where Song Guanghua actually created the system, you know, well over 150 years ago. I forget the exact timeline of when it was, but you know, to see that, you know, they've been continuously practicing in the same place, you know, despite wars, despite famines, despite revolutions, all of the, you know, turmoil that's gone on in China, they've managed to keep that tradition was really very special. I've just realized, although I said this list was going to be in no particular order, it's actually ending up in chronological order. So the third one was when I took Jesse Enkamp to Fujian province and learning about the so-called southern Shaolin arts of Fujian, you know, like the white crane and the incense shot boxing and everything. The big highlight there for me, although obviously everything was really amazing, was meeting Master Lin Shanquan, the master of incense shot boxing. Just because his personality, he was such a character. I don't think he'd had much exposure before. I mean, he is quite well known in China, not only as a master of martial arts, but also as a calligrapher, bone setter, and you know, various other like traditional practices. But he was just such a character, so generous, so open to share with us. I mean, if I was living there, you know, for a longer period of time, I probably would have considered learning from him. It's a very interesting system, a system that you don't really see outside of China or even just outside of Fuzhou city, really. So it is a very rare system, but I think more important than the system is the teacher, and just the fact that he's so open and he's so passionate about it means that, you know, if you were going to learn from someone, he would be somebody that would clearly be very good at teaching and you know, really take care of ensuring that his students, you know, attained a high level.
You've not got enough of mass events in Australia?
The 18 Lohan here, although they're behind glass, I'm not sure how clearly you can see with the reflection. Theme of Hungas, that's one of the styles featuring quite prominently on this upcoming series. You've got the, behind all that reflection, you've got the Taming the Tiger Lohan of Fuhu, you know, as there's the famous Hunga form, Gongzi Fuhu Chen. Old Damien there is the other 9 of the 18 Lohan. And then the fourth highlight, I would say, was my first trip overseas after COVID, when I went to the Philippines and exploring Filipino martial arts, because it's something that I've seen, you know, a lot of videos, a lot of stuff on TV, but I've never trained it or, you know, experienced it firsthand for myself. And I think in particular on that trip was meeting Master Rene Tongson, the founder of Abanico Tres Puntas system out in Cavite. That was a really amazing experience. He was an absolute great guy, very skilled. I really liked his way of teaching, and I liked the very systematic approach he had, and also the way that he explained to me how he's built up his organization to make sure that it's, you know, there's a very clear curriculum in place. There's very clear-cut hierarchy that you can rise through the ranks, and so, you know, is trying to avoid any politics within his association, because, you know, as most of you know, that's a big plague of traditional martial arts. So I really respected him for that, and, you know, he was also a really great host. I mean, this was my first time into rural Philippines, and he just, you know, he'd never met me before. We'd just spoken on Facebook, and he was so generous to host me, to just, you know, drive me all over the place. He took me over an hour to Tagaytay to, you know, to meet another master, Rodel Daguk, and also to visit the town of Balisong to see where the knives are made. So really appreciate Rene for all of that, and that was a fantastic experience, one that I'll always remember. The last highlight for the channel was the most recent trip I did before this one, which was to Taiwan. Now, again, I'm not going to say any particular teacher with this one, much like the Shaolin series, but just the trip in general, because you know, as I've said so many times, having lived in China for so long, like 13 years, to then finally get to go to Taiwan and see kind of the other side, you know, the other China, if you will, that was like a really, really fascinating experience. You know, there's a lot of traditional culture that's preserved there, especially, you know, within the martial arts and folk religion. So to see things that I would say are more difficult to find in China nowadays was really, really good. And to see, especially with the northern styles there, how actually similar they are to what's still being done in China now. That was really, really interesting, especially meeting the various Mantis practitioners there. And, you know, despite the fact that we're essentially, you know, me coming from a mainland lineage and them from a lineage in Taiwan, we're essentially sort of two sides of the strait, two sides of the old bamboo curtain, and yet we had so much common language in what we were doing. You know, the terminology, the principles, the movements, it was all, you know, it was like a shared language that we had. That was a really, really great experience. And Taiwan was a place I just really, really enjoyed. The people were really nice, and it's somewhere I'll definitely be back to film another series. I think next time I would like to go to the south of the island and focus on the southern styles, which are not necessarily indigenous to Taiwan, but have a much longer history there. You know, they've grown up as a local style there, you know, such as White Crane, Taizu Chuan and things like that. So yeah, that was 5 experiences that particularly stood out for me over the past 5 years of running this channel. Obviously there was a 2-year break because there was no travel during COVID. But again, you know, everything that I've done on this channel, I've been so grateful for the experiences that I've had. It was very hard to choose 5, but I would say that those were ones that were quite unique. And here's to the next 5 years of the channel, starting with this next series in Hong Kong. And as always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate all of your support. I wouldn't be able to do all of this stuff without you guys, so thank you so much for that. And I'll see you in the Hong Kong series.